It's a pleasure for me to welcome Katie King, who is delivering our session today. Welcome, Katie. Katie's a board advisor to both private and public sector, government advisor, a published author and keynote speaker on artificial intelligence and digital transformation. I know you've done TED Talks in the past, which I'm always very, very impressed with, but also work with us as well, which I'm even more impressed with, Katie. So it's really great to welcome you again, and always enjoy how you're able to turn quite complex issues into easy to understand and and information that's very sort of digestible and obviously the main thing is about building understanding. So great to have you here, and if you're happy for me too, I shall hand the reins over to you now.
Most definitely, Mark. That's my pleasure. Thank you very much, and welcome to you all. So we've got 90 minutes from 1 till 2:30 for me to take you through, as Mark said, this subject, ethically transforming, keyword, ethically transforming your business, not just with AI, but also digital tools. And as Mark said, this is what I live and breathe. I've been consulting clients for 30 years now, but that doesn't mean just because I'm a certain age that I'm out of touch. Quite the opposite. I've been at the forefront and ahead of the pack with digital tech and communications and consultancy for many, many years. And then everyone caught up, and I decided I needed to have that new USP, that unique selling proposition. And so I've been involved with machine learning, artificial intelligence for some years, not as a technologist, not as someone trained in the coding, teaching you Python and Microsoft Azure. It's not about that. I've written a book and I consult clients on how to apply these technologies to your business, to different job functions like marketing, sales, HR, finance, but also to operationally how you run your businesses across multiple different sectors. So the book you can see there took a year, part-time. I've just coming to the end of my second book as well. So I'm right in the thick of all of the case studies of best practice, worst practice, speaking to the big vendors and all the startups and the politicians and the regulators and so on. So I've got lots and lots of good experience and nuggets of wisdom to share with you and advice. So day to day, I run a digital business. So, with my digital hat on, I run AI in business and Zudica's consulting. And I'm part of the all-party parliamentary group. So I'm telling you this because we are hearing every month brilliant evidence from people from all over the world giving evidence to Parliament about how this is happening in all different parts of the world, including the UK, and again, what's working, what isn't. And then I'm also on the editorial board of the AI and Ethics Journal. We're talking today about ethically adopting this. So I'm very well placed to be able to talk that through with you. As Mark said, we will break, an hour and a half on Zoom and Teams is tiring. So not just for me, for you. I think it's really important that we're fresh and that we've got, we don't want our kind of heads spinning. So 50 minutes, maximum an hour, quick 6-7 minute break to grab a coffee and, comfort break is what we'll do. But this is what I want to cover. Talking with Mark and shaping this agenda and knowing what's been covered in the past and not duplicating that, but also knowing what are the subjects of the moment. So we'll be looking at the business case for it, the new business paradigm in Business 4.0, and then looking at particularly the relevant, really powerful use cases so that you can learn from how others are using this in their different job functions, like I said, but also in their industry sectors. We'll look at who the vendors are, some of those case studies. And then we'll also talk about practically, this is not all theory, I'm not going to throw loads of statistics at you, practically, pragmatically, as a small business, as a medium-sized business, even as a larger corporation, how can you go about adopting this in your business? So I'll share with you my scorecard for success. We'll tackle the big issues of the moment, explainability, education, inclusiveness, job losses, all those great things. And then we'll look at ideas you can implement and actually how you get started. We'll allow some time at the end for Q&A. I don't think we need to go into breakout rooms. We're a nice sort of small tight-knit group. So I'm very happy for you throughout the webinar. If anything is unclear or you've got a burning question, please stop me, please interrupt me. But what we'll do is we'll check in after the break halfway through, and we'll allow 10, 15, probably about 10 or 12 minutes at the end for questions. But please feel free to jump in at any time if you've got any queries or you want to share something. So it's important before we get started to think about what we mean. We know what digital is. You know, we digitization, digital tools, we're talking, you know, Zoom, we're talking Ring Central, we're talking Teams, we're talking all the different social platforms, e-commerce, websites, all of that. I think that's quite well understood now. And of course, we know that COVID has really accelerated that digitization for a lot of companies, even very small people. We're all working, small organizations, we're all now, most of us, working remotely. But do we fully understand and grasp what we mean by AI? So I'm just going to drag this toolbar. There we go. I can see all of you and I can't see my slides. So I've just pulled that across a bit. You can't actually see that. So let me help by explaining what I mean by AI. We're talking really of a family of technology that's been around since the 1950s. I'm sure you've heard of Alan Turing. I do a lot of work with the Alan Turing Institute. You might have watched the film with Damien Cumberbatch. But really, he was the one who championed it back then. And the idea of passing the Turing test is that something is indistinguishable from a human being. So what we're really talking about here is technology that has the power to imitate, and that's important, is imitating intelligent human behavior. And again, reality check here, we are nowhere near that super artificial intelligence where it can do everything a human can do. It might come. Genuinely, the best brains in the world don't know if it will. It could come in 50 to 100 years. But where we're at the moment is somewhere in between the two here, where we've got narrow AI, which is dedicated, you know, to assisting with one particular task. And we're closer to the general, we're closer to machines being able to learn for themselves and, you know, do that machine learning, do that sort of adapted intelligence, and move from being able to play Go to maybe able to help you with your copywriting. So that's really what we're thinking about there with it. And it falls into all these different categories. I said it's a family of technologies. You might have heard about it through chatbots, a customer service tool that a lot of organizations are using. I'm getting loads of calls at the moment on my mobile, and I'm almost certain that they are by these virtual assistants. And they're even using the ums and the ahs and the ooh. And, you know, they've been trained on the best call center people, and they're doing outbound calling for business development, customer experience, and so on. But we're also talking about another part of the family of AI and machine learning, predictive models, where we're forecasting demand so that we, as a shop, for example, don't have to stock loads and loads of stock. We can predict based on the big data that tells us historically what happened, and predicting, for example, weather patterns. If you're a restaurant, you can predict what the weather's going to be now with that big data from the Met Office, and know based on trends before how many diners you're likely to have. And that's brilliant for sustainability, you know, reducing food waste and things like that. And then across sales and marketing and HR, we've got machine learning tools that are helping HR people or marketeers to know, okay, let's sift all of those CVs, let's do all the grunt work. And so I call it the 3Ds, the dirty, dull, and dangerous. And so AI is now able to help us do the things that many workers have done manually for many, many years. And so that is because we are in this fourth industrial revolution. You know, think back to how, you know, in the early days, you know, pre-washing machines, you know, pre all kinds of technology, we did things very manually. And I think we will look back maybe in 10 years and laugh at how manually we did a lot of the things that we do today. So that's a little bit about AI. It is in your world. And one of the great things is, it's coming to a home near you soon. So this is Milton Keynes, and we've got these drones and robots that have got cameras, they've got computer vision, they've got sensors all built in. It's not all AI. They've got a mixture of different technologies, and they're delivering our groceries, and they're out on trial on the streets of Milton Keynes. But also think about yourself. You might not be hugely interested in social media, but from a digital point of view, you certainly need to be considering, where are your customers active at the moment? And digital tools are hugely in demand, because it's going to where customers are and not just expecting them to come to you. So AI is in our lives. It will get in our lives even more. Think of the pandemic as well, the speeding up of drug discovery so that we can all benefit from the vaccine. So huge impact of AI on our lives, because it sped up something that used to take 20 years and got that down to about 1 year. And that's hugely impactful. Our ability to, obviously, to save lives, but also to get back on with our personal lives, get our businesses back on track, and hopefully, as more countries roll out their vaccines, eventually traveling again internationally for pleasure and for business too. So, that is what the AI is, crunching big data and coming up with insights. And what I would really get you thinking about is, you as a lawyer or as a project manager or as a marketing professional, these AI tools are your helper. They're giving you, we call it augmented intelligence. So whatever you are, barrister, doctor, lawyer, whatever kind of person you are, the big data tools are there for you to take advantage and to get insights into what impacts your business, your customers, your clients, your staff, and so on. So that's just a brief introduction so that we can think about, what is AI? How is it impacting my personal life, my social life, my home, my society? But most of today's webinar, we're really focused in on the business case for AI. But I just wanted to set that scene by getting you thinking about what it is. I think it would be fair to say now, unlike 2 years ago, I've been talking about this for 4 or 5 years, but people probably now are beginning to realize, certainly business executives, that they can no longer afford to ignore it. And certainly the businesses that have got the foresight to adapt it early are really outperforming those that didn't, between up to 15%. And what we're seeing here, and there are all sorts of statistics I'm going to throw at you, not to blind you with science, but to back up what I'm saying, we're predicting here a doubling of the global investment in AI. So it's going to end up at about $110 billion over the next 3 years. And so that's huge. You only have to turn the TV on or the radio or go online, or your trade journals or conferences you attend virtually and hopefully soon in person, and it's on the agenda. So one extra thing I want to say about this. So we're really thinking about a technology, like I said, that's been around for 50 years, but hasn't been viable. Why hasn't it been viable? Because now we've got the cheaper compute power, the ability for the AI to work, and the big data. So we've got big data from all of our smartphones, from all of our, the internet usage and other digital platforms. So we've got the two ingredients that make AI viable. As a result of that, investment comes along. Venture capitalists come along, put a big investment in. All these AI companies start up and have got all these incredible tools, some of which I'm going to share with you now. So, but inevitably, like anything, we've got this hype cycle. And I've just looked back a couple of years to where AI was then, and to sort of get a feel for the change. But this applies to 2021 as well, and there'll be different technologies. So in a few years' time, AI will no longer be that big buzzword. It won't be in the innovation phase where new technology becomes the thing of the moment. You know, it's viable in terms of it becomes, from an engineering or a scientific point of view, it's there. But do people want it? Not yet, certainly not in 2019. And so then it falls into the Gartner peak of inflated expectation, where paranoia, all the press writing about it, they harp back to Hollywood, to HAL and Terminator, because they don't have the data at hand and the return on investment case studies at hand. And so then people, the innovators, maybe very early on started to use it. And I've got a bank in my book that used AI 3 or 4 years ago, a Danish bank, and their clients found it very shallow and gimmicky, and it didn't really do much. And staff felt very threatened, so they didn't really have a success with it. And that's that trough of disillusionment. So where we'll get to, and I think we're getting to it, so the 2 to 5 years away, you know, we're closer to that. We need to get to that slope of enlightenment, and eventually that plateau of productivity. So that's really what we're talking about now, is businesses not jumping on the AI bandwagon because everyone tells them they should, but actually saying, we could get some real benefit from this. And here's some examples of other companies that have done that. So let me share with you now, this is from McKinsey, and down on the left, we've got all of the business, not all, but a number of industry sectors, ranging from telecoms down to pharmaceuticals. And some of you will probably fall into maybe one of these categories in the list there. Across the top are the different job functions that those industry sectors use AI for most. So let me give you 2 examples from my book. Number 1, in telecoms, the biggest use of AI was service operations. And that actually is an example, say like BT. BT look ahead and can say, and we've had it the last few months, when the weather's been really cold and icy and snow, broadband lines get affected. You know, there might be outages, there might be damage, there might be frozen fiber optic pipes. What the big data does, they can say, historically, when that happens, this is what we need. And we can use AI data to predict weather patterns. And so then they can schedule their engineers to go out in their vans ahead of time and be ready. And that actually is about service ops. But if you think about it, that's about a great marketing message, and it's about great customer service as well. So really powerful. Take another example of retail. Go along, and 52% in the blue there is them using it for sales and marketing. The banks are actually quite similar. They're using it more for service, but the banks use it for marketing as well. And a good example is them saying, no longer they're going to say, Katie, 40 to 55 years old, or female 40 to 55 years old. They might say, Katie comes into our restaurant on a Thursday evening, she orders ribs, her daughter's vegan, etc., etc., etc. So what you're getting here is big data insights from customers or clients who give you consent. Come back to ethics later. People giving you consent to use their data, and then you as the organization, as a result of that, being able to offer a very personalized service. This will come to healthcare, to education, and to all walks of life. But to start with, this is in business, and this is about personalized sales, marketing, HR, customer service. And there's a paradox there, and I wrote a whole chapter on this in my book. The paradox is that we think big scary robot, forget that. That's not what we're talking. We're not talking big scary robot coming taking my jobs. We're talking tools augmented with AI, giving us big data, making us give our clients and customers much more human, personalized service. You know, how many times have we been on the phone for a half an hour with BT or a utility or some kind of organization, and their customer experience is so poor, they don't have their ducks in a row with all of that data. This gives you that level of granularity. So that brings me on to the next part of looking at AI's role in business, which is how does AI impact certain job functions? And I want to, pack this with lots of examples for you. So one of those is the use of conversational AI. And what that's doing, this AI technology is giving organizations, brands, businesses of different shapes and sizes the ability to leverage these digital assistants, these messaging apps, chatbots, back to that paradox I mentioned, actually making it very handcrafted, very tailored comms with customers. Worth mentioning there, though, maybe 85% of a business's call center activity or engagement with customers could be done by these, but we've got to allow for upscaling that 15% of complex queries or difficult clients or clients that aren't able to access that being done by a human agent. So the human is very much in the loop. People are not, when I say not made redundant, we'll come on to jobs later. Of course, some jobs will decrease in demand, but it doesn't mean that there will actually be a net gain in employment, which again, I'll share with you. So this human-like scale of communication is really, really important. So that's the kind of use of it in CX, in customer experience. And if you're a small business, you don't have somebody that owns that, but you might be able to buy in a subscription type model a tool that enables you to have that. We all, however small we are, need to do some kind of HR, personnel, whatever you like to call it. And certainly slightly bigger organizations are beginning to really understand that the predictive analytics and the AI is going to help them. But let's not pretend that they're all ready for it. In the last few years, only a very small percentage there, you can see bottom right, 36% of the HR functions have started to introduce AI, but only 14% have really invested in it properly in that last couple of years. But certainly everything, if you're on LinkedIn, everything is about transformation, workplace transformation, digitization, and HR, is playing a big role in that. There are tools on the market like Jamie AI, helping you, for example, to do your hiring, to sift those CVs, to try not to be biased so that you don't keep hiring the same type of person. And that's important for bigger organizations to, to be able to safely reassure their staff and potential staff and employers and so on, employees rather, that they are, have diversity and inclusion top of their agenda. So this automating of tasks like HR can be done, through AI. We've got LinkedIn here saying 76% of recruiters believing AI is going to have a big impact on recruitment. And if you're in the jobs market, if you are looking for a job or you are doing the hiring, AI algorithms are behind a lot of the digital tools that are doing that recruitment. And they are, again, shortlisting candidates and so on. So, it can save a lot of time and it can actually help you by increasing your diversity as well. And some of the bigger organizations are using certain tools. There's one called Culture Amp, and Airbnb is using it to do surveys of employees, analyzing, fixing problems, and so on. And then you've got, that whole usage of the performance reviews. I know when I had a big team, that was a hugely important part of the year when we did those twice yearly, but incredibly time consuming. So the ability for these AI tools to take away some of that legwork and automate some of that for you. Another job function, I know this job function really, really well because I do marketing for my own business, but we run marketing. And obviously lots of businesses need to do marketing and PR, publicity, digital, social media, and there are many, many tools on the market, many digital and many AI tools. So, there are digital tools. Of course, there are all the social platforms, but there are tools like Canva to create wonderful images for this virtual background, for example, and nice widgets for your Twitter and so on. But there's AI tools as well, like the one you're seeing here. So we've got the opportunity to, it's called Concured, and the idea is content cured, making it easy for you. And this won the Gartner Cool Vendor Award in 2019. And it's taking away some of the legwork of share of voice, content, writing some of that content for you, doing all of that kind of activity for you. Sales, all of us need to retain the business we've got, to grow it, and to win new business, whatever size of organization we are. Even, the third sector, the charitable areas, they need more donations and so on. So we all need, in some form or another, to be doing sales. And this is a tool, people.ai, that you can use to integrate in with your CRM, to work with your project management software if you've got it, like Slack or Salesforce, and it takes away the guesswork. So marketing has always been seen as, and PR, as a soft discipline, and there was a bit of finger in the air guesswork. Sales has had elements of luck and great relationships involved. And what AI is doing for these disciplines is making them scientific, making them backed on data. So now a tool like this can say to you as the boss or your sales teams, go and focus on this task. This persona, this group of people is very like the people that have traditionally bought from us. Here's where they're active in these platforms, on these social areas, at these conferences. Go and focus here with this headline, with this content. And that's a very, very powerful way to do business in a very, as I say, data-driven way. Another, I mentioned I'm writing book number 2. When I did book 1, I wish I had this tool. I tried tools then, so we're going back, it was published in 2019, it took a year or so 2017 and 18. Now I can use Otter AI, so I can record, let's say this meeting, I can record an hour-long interview. Imagine I was interviewing you or Mark for my book. I can do an hour-long interview, record it, upload it into Otter AI, which costs me only $80 for the year, and it gives me a brilliant transcript of that hour-long interview. So what it's doing is converting voice to text. So AI is able to do that kind of activity as well. And there are tools that are very affordable. A lot of times people say to me, great, great webinar, Katie, but sounds like it's all about big business. And it's not. I use tools like this, and I'm a very, very small business. Big businesses can afford to spend $500,000, £20,000 or dollars on call centers and chatbot assistants, but all of us of all different sizes can afford £50, £100 a month, maybe a couple of thousand for certain tools. So AI is accessible and will get even more accessible as the years go on. So this is a great tool. Again, we're sticking with job functions like AI in marketing and sales and public relations and content. Signal AI basically has this AI brain, and it can interpret millions of documents across hundreds of languages and give you real-time data and so on. And so what it's doing, it's giving, say for example, the comms or the PR teams all these clippings of editorial coverage and insights as to what they need to be doing, and telling them this is what we need to focus on. This becomes like a dashboard for you. It becomes like your perhaps expensive digital person you can't afford to hire, but maybe you can afford to buy a subscription model to a tool like this that means you don't need to have that person. This is the #1 chat bot. So this is Amelia. Again, this is slightly more expensive, but this is working in conversational AI, allowing these thousands of conversations to take place in seconds. And what she's doing is she is switching and understanding and integrating and continuously learning. And if that blows your mind, there's something called digital humans, which is a few years away yet, but is starting to come to the fore. And these will get used eventually in business as well. So what we need to do as human beings, and I'll talk more about it in the second half after the break in about 20 minutes time, is think about what makes us human: our empathy, our creativity, our knowledge of our organization. Clients, customers don't want to just deal with digital humans and robots and virtual assistants. We need people in the loop in all of our businesses for a long time to come. This is another one. So this is another PR type tool, and it's letting people work out, okay, so how are my competitors owning a certain issue? What's the sentiment? Say, for example, you're pushing out a lot of content on your Instagram or your Twitter channel, and you're getting all of these hits, and you're going, oh, great, tick, done a great job. But actually, when you look closely, the sentiment actually says, this is very negative. People are complaining. This is what you need to do. You need to step in and so on. So it's helping you with crisis comms, with influencer marketing, and so on. Lots more here. I'll just whiz through a couple of these. So, databases of journalists, how to keep up to date with them, many tools on the market like this. Others I've mentioned a couple of these already, but we've got Karma doing the media monitoring, and a few others. And I'm very happy through Mark or through his colleague Sadia to give you a PDF version of my slides so that you can go away and explore this content in a bit more detail afterwards. So that's the what is AI? How is it being used in which job functions? Let's now look, again, we'll start this before the break and we'll continue it after the break as well. How is AI transforming certain industry sectors? So what you'll see here is data that's showing over the last few years the impact specifically on job functions like marketing and sales, strategy, manufacturing, risk, and so on. So you can see the different colors there and which of them are going to increase by which amounts. And we can see in the blue quite a big percentage increase of 40 increasing by 5%. What does that mean in practice? Let's look at some real examples of that in practice in some of the sectors that some of you either are in or sell to or might want to move into in the future. So banking, massive impact. AI in banking and financial services is one of the big drivers, one of the big sectors that's ahead of the game. So what we're doing here, again, big data insights, big improvements in customer service, helping with website content. There's a tool called Wix, which is an AI tool for actually building your website. And what it's doing is it's, again, taking away that burden of a big percentage of all of the email queries coming in and pushing that out to other digital channels. So this is a great chart because this shows you across the board AI in the back office on the right-hand side, where it's helping with identifying fraud, for example. If someone's trying to take money out of your bank account, it's showing anomalies. It's scanning those and flagging it up in real time, saying, Katie, you haven't just traveled to China. Why is somebody using your card in a retail outlet in China? So that back office, again, which has a big impact on customer service, but the front office as well, the branches, the digital usage, the customer relationship marketing, all of that becomes really important. And then in the middle, this is about what do we offer as a business? What are our products and services? which is partly marketing and sales, but also, fundamentally, what is it that we can offer? And by using AI, we can actually branch, forgive the pun, into different areas of business that maybe haven't been open to us as a bank up until now. So you can just sort of see there at a glance how that actually is being used. So some predictions here: digital banking penetration expected over the next couple of years. It's probably even higher now, given what we've just had with COVID this past year. Some of people like PwC and others are saying that, companies have done in 3 to 6 months what they were planning to do in 2 to 3 years, because they've been forced to do digital. So, we're talking here about big cost savings and big benefits that mean we, the customer, should get great services, but also great service as well. So in financial service, it might be a tool like this one here, MyEva, that actually is able through an app to give us regulated advice on our pensions. Doesn't mean the independent financial advisor or the bank or the insurance company is out of work, but it does mean that they need to rethink the tools that they use, and it does mean that things that might have not been available and accessible to very small companies before now are accessible. So really, really important. Let's move around and look at some other industry sectors as well. So this is looking at AI in local authorities, and we're seeing here, where this is Oxford University study showing where the local governments are applying this predictive data. And, for us as residents, we are looking at, let me just drag that toolbar over there. We're looking at the AI being able to help us in welfare and in social care, but also in transportation and healthcare and so on. So really, really important usage of it there in a number of different disciplines. I'm doing a lot of work in this sector at the moment. I do tons in B2B, but starting to do quite a bit in B2C as well. So just to reassure you, I do a lot in B2B and for small businesses as well. This is not all big brands, but I do have a few examples like this. So we've got AI in the beauty industry, both the cosmetics side for consumers, but also the more professional beauty end. It's more business to business for the beauty company selling to the professional beautician. And you've got tools like this Modiface, as the name suggests, that can offer anti-aging and skincare simulation, so that it can look, again, think personalization, looking at the person's face through the camera on their phone, measuring their skin conditions, maybe rosacea or acne and so on, and actually really giving that very personalized service. Even in a state agency, and there are many, many independent estate agents, not just the big chains. And so they can use AI to look at comparing data trends, historical trends, finding correlations, and actually estimating what a house is actually worth and what it might be worth in the future, rather than maybe a finger in the air, or God forbid, what sometimes happened in the past was, giving them a backhander to value your house, which has happened, So this integrity, this scientific approach to business is really, really important. Again, looking at neighborhood trends, telling us how much to invest in a property, how to renovate it, and so on. The AI is able to do all of that. What we've got here as well is even organizations like charitable organizations. What I'm going to do actually is, let me just try it. No, Mark, tell me if I was going to play this video, but I think is the audio playing?
It's not. No, can't
No,
hear anything at the moment.
I'll play that one after the break, because I needed, when I shared my screen, just to tick a little box for the audio. So I'll play that one after the screen. But what that video will show you, and you'll see it after the break, is how a food bank, small organizations, under-resourced, doing a great job can take advantage of it. So I'll come back to that one after the break and make sure that your audio is okay as well. So professional services, a bit like banking, but not quite as ahead of the pack. So lawyers, I always think of a poor graduate, and I've got quite a few. I've got daughters myself of 22 and 25. They're not lawyers, you know, but they've done well at uni, and some of my friends' children have graduated in law, and then they go and work for a firm, and they can end up in the basement of a law firm wading through pages of a non-disclosure agreement and doing extremely dull, mundane work. And lawyers can now use AI tools to do a lot of that dirty, dull, dangerous stuff that I've talked about a couple of times. So again, venture capital, the market conditions are right. And so you've got startups like this Ping raising money, using AI, helping the law firm say, okay, lawyer, this will automate your timesheets. You can spend more time fee earning, doing great work for your customers and clients, and this will do the timesheets for you. I had to do timesheets for years as a marketing and PR consultant in an agency, and I used to dread it. And think about digital tools. I know I'm talking about AI, but I've touched digital tools. Digital tools, tools in the cloud. I'm thinking, for example, as somebody like me running a very small business and using a cloud-based tool called Free Agent, where I can, for I think it's about £150 per month, it automates all my VAT, my annual return. It synchronizes with my bank account, shows me debtor days. I do all my invoicing through it. Absolutely phenomenal. You know, digital tools like that, software as a service in the cloud tools, we've had those for 10 or so years. I'm describing, carry on using those, but new AI tools are coming to the fore as well that will, again, automate some of these functions for you. I'm sure, like me, there are some wine lovers out there, and even AI is in wine, it's in football, it's in rugby, and it's about, again, you helping the people running the app to clean up fake reviews. So, you know, we're in this digital world and there's catfishing, there's all sorts of fake profiles, but AI actually is helping some organizations to be able to offer a better service and to prove that what they offer is authentic and so on. So a big brand like Shell, and there are many others like it, can use the virtual assistants that I mentioned. They have 10,000 product lines, and they, through this AI embedded app with their virtual assistant, unfortunately named because of the lubricants industry, Lube Chat, which is rather a weird name, but there you go, their choice. So Lube Chat is helping Shell products, helping looking at issues that customers might have. So taking away all of the hassle from the call centers and the customer experience teams and doing that through a tool like this, but also operationally as a business, AI is helping a brand like Shell and other energy organizations to identify equipment failures and oil spillages and so on through, again, the big data analytics that comes with it. So I mentioned earlier when I went through that chart with the McKinsey, with the retail and the BT and so on, this is TGI Fridays. And this is a job title. There's going to be a barking of a dog now. I'm really sorry, as there's a parcel at the door. Could you give me, just going to mute my microphone. So yeah, my daughter's coming, it's fine. Just wanted to apologize in case it got very, very noisy. So this is a tool so the tool here is Amperity. And this is TGI Fridays, who some of you will know as an online brand. Some of you will have gone into their restaurants. They are using these tools to pull in data from their point of sale, from their social media, from their credit cards. And what the big data does, stitch all of that data together. So clients, and you can see in the quote there, this is, you know, the 4 million guests who've given TGI Fridays permission to contact them directly. This system is analyzing that and means that they can offer these millions of guests a very personalized experience, like I mentioned earlier. But the important word there is consent, and we'll come back to that at the end of the session. So a couple more slides, and then I'll let you break just for about 7 or 8 minutes to put the kettle on and have a quick comfort break. So if you haven't seen it, go and check out Google Duplex. And I think, again, this is the future of work. This is, you know, a big organization like Google making this accessible to all of us in time, where we can't. I've never had the benefit of a personal assistant. You know, I always wanted one, an EV, you know, executive PA and all this kind of stuff. So these will be digital assistants who can book restaurants for you, who can manage your diaries, who can take that Otter AI, book meetings, send things around, and automate a lot of that administration for you, making reservations and so on. So that's going to be huge. And the way we speak out, ambient voice is going to be big too. Rather than it all being us glued to our phones and typing, we'll be doing it through voice commands. So, you know, really, really powerful there. And then this is my final slide before we break. AI in restaurants. I said to you about predictive analytics. This is a small restaurant using AI so that they can predict how many diners are going to come in. Particularly post-COVID, this could be make or break for some smaller restaurants who perhaps you know, profits have been hit, and they can, you know, if people cancel or they can't really tell how many people are actually going to be coming into the restaurant, you know, by using AI, they can look at weather patterns, tourism data, and predict it up to 45 days in advance. Certainly for the first few months after COVID, everybody's going to be so in demand, but over time, this will flatten out a bit. But we're talking high accuracy, ability to really increase our productivity and our profits, but also from a green, environmental, sustainability point of view, reducing food loss as well. So here we go. You should be able to hear this audio. It's only brief. I will stop part of it, but quick look at AI, even in small organizations, charitable organizations like food banks.
The Welcome Centre is a large independent food bank. We serve Huddersfield, which is in West Yorkshire, and the surrounding area. And we provide people in crisis with practical support, so food, toiletries, bedding, and we also provide an advocacy guidance and support service to help people move past their crisis. So we've noticed a trend over the last 5 years or so towards people needing longer term support. Obviously, no one wants to visit a food bank. We don't want people to be dependent on our service. We're a crisis service. So we wanted to make an early intervention for those people. So our trustee, Andrew, has a computer technology type background. He'd built us a bespoke referral database.
We'd started recording information about the clients who were being referred to us and the number of times they were being referred. That allowed us to get a picture of our demand here at the Welcome Centre. And to add value to that information, we got involved with DataKind in an activity called a Data Dive in 2016.
DataKind UK has a wide community of data scientists across the country. And what we try and do is get their skills and actually apply that to support social change organisations to make the best use of the data that they have. The Welcome Centre initially came to us recognising that they've collected a lot of data and they had a specific issue about how can they use their data much more effectively to enable them to provide better services for their service users.
I'm going to stop it there because it just gives you a flavour of what it is, just to see that an organisation like that is able to use it in such an important area of the market. So we talked about the restaurants after that, and then what I wanted to talk to you about now is thinking about how do you take this forward? How do you consider how you can use AI? So you might be thinking about, and I'd encourage you to sort of jot some thoughts down, go away after the webinar and think about this. Not jump on that bandwagon, let's all go and use AI, but what problem might it solve in your organization, in your marketing, in your sales, in your customer expertise, and how might AI be able to help you? Now, of course, there are many vendors. I've touched on some of them already. We've got the big players. We've got AWS, which is Amazon Web Services, Google with its AI platform. We've got TensorFlow, which is a free, massive resource there of open source AI and machine learning activity. And of course, players like Microsoft, IBM with Watson and Adobe as well. But then we've got all of the hundreds and thousands of companies that can help you, whatever job function or whatever sector you happen to be in. And I've included one example here of AI in your sales and marketing. And you can see at a glance, and this is from last year, breaking it down into the various tools that are out there for your data website, for example, or your content, or a chatbot, or paid media. And being completely honest, a lot of the CEOs and business owners I work with say, but it's a bit of a wild west. We don't know who to turn to. And I know it's complex. I know that we're waiting for regulations to be tightened and we're waiting for some guidance. But those that really want to get ahead of the pack, need to wade through that and be that innovator and think about, differentiating their organizations. Again, here we've got at a glance, and this is, I was able to download this in the last couple of days from CB Insights, AI broken down into different areas from NLP to deep learning and healthcare and different sectors. And you've got a number of key players, AI technology providers that can help you. So again, like I said, through Mark and the team, I will provide this as a reduced file PDF so that it can be emailed around rather than the hundreds of megabytes that it is currently. So I'll send that around to you all so you can look at this in a little bit more depth. How do you get started? How do you prepare your organization, and what might your barriers be? So people talk about cost, people talk about not having the education, not knowing and having the mindset for change, fear, many more. I'm sure you've all got your own ones. There's no way my shareholder would be interested in that, for example. But on the cost one, which is always a valid query, research in your local area, because through your local authorities, through your local universities, there will be opportunities like this one in Surrey, which is across the country, but it's an innovation voucher. And it's basically like a PhD data scientist in the university will come and work with you and your team to develop something bespoke for your organization using AI. And to fund their time on that project, there are these innovation grants. Some of them are up to 20K, but some of them are as low as £5,000. So check that out. I said earlier about a reality check. How do we get started? I mentioned the bank. This was Patrick, who I interviewed for my first book. And he was saying, psychologically, because the robot looked human in shape, people thought, oh, let's socialize with it, let's talk to it. But it could only do what it had been programmed to do. So it couldn't deal with the unexpected. For that reason, people got bored and irritated and they lost interest. And also staff, like I said, found it threatening because the bank failed to really take on board what staff needed to hear about protection of their rights and jobs and so on. But the bank didn't stop there. It learned from its mistakes, it iterated, and it went on to deploy AI in a different department where it reduced customer onboarding by down to 1 hour with machine learning. So what I've pulled up for you here is what I call my scorecard for success. And again, this is applicable to any size of organization in any sector, in any geography. But also, actually, this is thinking that you could apply to coping with any kind of change, like coping with the pandemic, for example. But it's particularly relevant to AI. And so you have this scorecard. You can score yourself 0 to 5 across 10 sections, which means you can get a score maximum 50. Anything below 20, clearly you're quite traditional. In the middle, you're transitioning, and 35 upwards, you're transformational, the way you're using AI. And again, I won't go through every bullet point because we'll run out of time to talk about, some questions, but it's about mindset. It's about buy-in from the management team too. It's about having a proof of concept and a business case. It's about actually doing collaboration with different departments. It's having the right talent or hiring it in or reskilling people or a hybrid of those. Culture and innovation are crucial. 9 we'll come on to in a moment because that's that big picture of regulation and innovation and jobs and so on. And then 10, we need a roadmap. We need a plan. We need the authority to proceed. We need the budget and so on. Okay, so medium to long term, maybe you're planning for AI. Maybe it's on your 5-year plan. Maybe it's on your 3-year plan. But let's bring it to your 6-month plan. Let's get you thinking about, let's have a watching brief on the competition. What are my competitors doing in this space with digital and AI tools? Let's go and research a couple of the tools that I've talked about today. Let's maybe do a very small proof of concept in our sector. And let's do some new behaviors. Let's spend 15 minutes every morning familiarizing ourselves with digital tools and getting up to speed with and taking the fear away from them. So practical examples like this mean you can start to break down this massive, I need to take advantage of AI, and make it something very practical and pragmatic that you can actually go away and do. So I wrote that for my book published in 2019. I've since seen this from McKinsey, but it's similar because it talks about successful companies. This is what they do with their AI. They align it to their business strategy. They invest in talent. They collaborate and so on. So clearly we're on the right lines here if we start to take this kind of advice. So last 10 minutes, impact on jobs, huge. Huge, huge, huge. 97 million jobs growing in demand, but 85 million decreasing in demand over the coming years. Data for the next 4 years, we're in 2021 now, by the World Economic Forum. Good news, net gain. Yeah, the difference between the 85 and the 97, but bad news if you're in one of those sectors. But what it doesn't mean is you're necessarily redundant. It means you need to adapt and take advantage of some of these tools. So big numbers of us, I've had to do it a number of times in my career. I did traditional marketing, then I had to do digital marketing. Now I'm having to do AI, machine learning based marketing, and a mix of all the things I've done for 30 years and all the things I need to carry on doing for the next few years. Millions of workers, will lose their jobs to automation, but for most of us, it's going to be changing the nature of the tasks that we do and new industries growing. This is reassuring again, I think, from the World Economic Forum. The AI isn't sentient, isn't human, doesn't have empathy, isn't creative as such. And so we have all of these wonderful skills that will be in demand, the problem solving skills, working with people skills, and so on. So like I said, adapting to COVID, adapting to change like AI, think about this change curve. We're in shock, we're in denial, we get frustrated, we might get a bit fed up and low and depressed even, but as we start to come out of that and experiment, make some decisions, integrate it into our work, things become so much easier. And that's going to happen over a period of time with the right education, with the right buy-in from the board and so on. So last couple of minutes, big issues, loads of them. Again, I could run a whole webinar just on the big issues, but great news recently, just recently, in the last few days, we've had, I know we're not part of the EU anymore, but we've got this regulation coming from the EU. It will no doubt be adopted by many countries. The UK has been very forward thinking with ethics and AI, but we've got the EU in the last days saying AI risk, you know, we mustn't have, we'll have these 4 risk categories of unacceptable, high risk, limited risk, and minimal risk. So there are people now putting this regulation in place, which is there to protect all of us. All of these bodies, this is from PwC, but there are many, many, many different organizations and departments in the UK that are owning and starting to grapple with this space, with this area of ethics and so on. And again, from an international perspective, I was very reassured last June when a number of OECD countries came together to basically say, in a manner that's consistent with human rights, with freedoms, with our shared democracy, we've created this partnership so that we can responsibly develop AI, because we know AI could be used for warfare. We know the Chinese, people in Afghanistan, people in Scotland, people in America, we've all got different values, different legal jurisdictions, different approaches to what's right, what's not right, what's, you know, in terms of potential conflicts in our regions. That could well continue, but we do need to come together. And of course, China isn't in that list, which is a shame, but, you know, we do need to collaborate internationally around the data governance and the future of work and protecting humanity and so on. And I think I took an initiative last June to bring AI to schools and to teach young people, because it's not on the curriculum. If you study computer science, you're going to learn coding, but I ran, with the help of these organizations, telling them all about how AI is going to reshape their job if they went into football, marketing, finance, business, not just if they wanted to be a data scientist who knows how to code. And I think we all need to do those kinds of things and be active and do our corporate social responsibility. A couple of final points before we go to questions. There are laws already out there. We have GDPR, and in GDPR there are 2 clauses for ethics and explainability, and it's saying personal data should be lawful, fair, and transparent. So we need to be compliant with the laws that already exist, like the new one I mentioned, like this, and we need to be proactive and work with our trade bodies and our companies to develop the next level of automation. So that brings to the end the formal part of the training today, or not necessarily training, you know, the workshop. My final messages really are that I don't want any of you to go away discouraged or frightened. You know, I'm 54 and I believe we are, all of us, on a journey of continuous learning, and AI can democratize the best education money can buy, because there are brilliant tools out there, brilliant free resources, and you've seen some of what I've shared today. So I think, don't think of it as this great big thing. Think of it as small, manageable chunks that you can all go away and start to consider deploying in your organization. So that's, as I say, the formal piece of me giving you know, you that data. But let's open it up now and see. I'm sure Mark will have some questions, but let's see if any of you have got any observations, any fears, any questions that you would like to share with us all as well.
We've got one from Liz, Katie. Asked if is there any way you can, thanks Liz, by the way, is there any way you can go and input the job you want doing, such as automating, digitizing, signing a document, and get a list of software that can do the job? And she said that this is the area she finds most difficult. Once you know what to digitize and what to do, and what you can use to do it, essentially.
They don't make it very easy for you to do that. No, I'm afraid not. There aren't all of the shortcuts in place at the moment for that. So no, I don't think you can at the moment. I certainly haven't seen it. I think it's looking at your business plan, looking at what you do, looking at some of your tools, some of your processes, some of the way that you run your business, and then being quite proactive and going and exploring what's out there. But I do think over time, and we may be looking another few years, it will, just like you've got, say, Microsoft Office 365, Dynamics, and so on. I think the AI will get consumed into these big tools and almost off the shelf type packages. So it might be an AI business development kit that someone like Google ultimately develops, or Microsoft, or somebody like that. But at the moment, no, I'm not aware that that is possible, but I would like to see that as well, definitely. Good question.
Thanks, Katie. Thanks for raising that, Liz. I was going to ask you, you mentioned about skills actually. And I guess there's two sides to the skills, isn't it? One in terms of being able to create sort of great products and services using AI, and then it's actually using applications that are already out there doing that effectively. I guess there's two sides to that, but just sort of wonder what your views are on where you think the main skills shortages are going forward in AI, and any views on how we might close the gap. Clearly you're doing some work on that in terms of going into schools, and what you suggested there.
Exactly. No, it's a really good point. And the way we develop skills, for example, AI in education, again, there was a big announcement yesterday, which I posted on my LinkedIn today. Anyone's free to connect if they want to, whereby AI is going to play a huge role in tertiary education. So, you know, in colleges and universities. And so AI doing the teaching and the learning and supporting the teachers and the lecturers to do that is one thing. And then to the other part of your question, skills, the big skills gap, you know, it's huge. I think there's multiple parts to this. There is a big potential digital divide. So if people aren't taught these digital skills, there's a massive potential problem there of people not being able to access the opportunities. And then there's the curriculum type piece of, are we teaching people, even whatever they're learning, whether it's history or data science or, you know, business or, you know, construction, are we teaching them the right skills that business is going to need? And I think that's tricky, because that's shaking out at the moment, because the businesses don't all know what they need. So I think what it points to is education in the future needs to be much more fluid and continuous, and that executive education and ongoing learning through AI portals with assistance from coaches and teachers and AI professionals is going to be really important. But it's a big state of flux at the moment. And I know I interviewed Dame Wendy Hall for my book, who's the AI skills champion, and Professor Rose Luckin, who's doing a lot of work. And these are some of the people to follow and to hear what they have to say on that. But it's highly complex, but it does need us to be much more agile. So for example, the Department for Education needs to be much more agile and prepared to change the curriculum and not be stuck with something that's, you know, maybe many decades old or even hundreds. So I think it's that, as businesses, as public sector, being agile so that we can bring the change soon enough so that we're very competitive on the global stage.
That's great. And I was going to ask as well, just check the chat. I don't think there's any further questions yet, but please do drop them in as you think of them. But just in terms of how you stay up to date. So how do you sort of keep? Because there's a lot. We got bombarded with messages, do we, and information, and it's, I suppose it's cutting through that, but also finding the time to do it, really.
No, you're right. So I said in that slide about the 6-month plan, new behaviours, and I do make time every day, and it doesn't take hours. It might take half an hour, but I do Google searches under news, not just Google all, but Google, when you do a Google search and you search for news, and I'll do a Google News search on subjects like AI. But I also know credible sources. I don't want to just read what the whole world is saying about it. I want credible sources. I want, you know, Deloitte, McKinsey, Bain, Financial Times, my industry sector, key opinion leaders in this space. You know, there's great people like Maria Accente at PwC, Kay Firth Butterfield at the World Economic Forum, the Office for National Statistics, Gartner, Forrester, those kinds of people. And I'll check them out on Twitter, on LinkedIn, through a Google search, you know. And again, it's not taking me hours. I'll dip in and out. So yeah, hopefully that sort of and of course, these kinds of sessions where organizations like yours bring people in to share their knowledge and so on is important too. So, you know, in your industry sector, in your region, in, you know, whatever sector you're in, just being up to speed, you know, using the social platforms, not all for broadcasting, but for social listening, so that you are getting the data and learning and progressing. And that's great for your own brand, your personal brand, your company brand, to get a job, to get the next job, for all the different ways that we've been discussing.
Great, thanks, Katie. Just check the chat again. So I just one other one. I remember one of the earlier slides from Gartner gave just that sort of the curve of where technologies come on stream. You get inflated expectations, then a big dip. I was interested that, and I know obviously it's a model, and you know it's the exact sort of you know, it wouldn't be exact in terms of expectations, but it was interesting that plateau of productivity never seem to quite reach the expectations. So I guess it's almost an impossible task, isn't it? Because we get very excited when something's new, do we?
I think so, and the media fuel that, don't they, by setting our expectations right up here. But no, that's a good point. Yeah, absolutely. But again, I guess it's, we want the productivity, don't we? Our expectations might be here, but we ultimately want it to make us, I mean, the two main benefits really are cost savings, you know, or some revenue increases, and the big data and the automation can do something over here operationally, and then over here give us better insights for our HR, for our marketing, for our sales, which ultimately mean we can retain our customers, grow new customers, and so on.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thanks, Katie.
Welcome.
I think that's it in terms of the questions so far, but we can keep an eye on that in the last few moments. I'd just be grateful, as we usually do on the webinars, just to launch a poll just to get everybody's feedback. So I'll just leave that running in the background whilst we're sort of just running through a few final slides. So just very grateful for your feedback, so that yeah, obviously see how you found things today. So Katie, that's really great. Thanks very much for all of the information.
No problem, Mark. I've got the last couple of slides here for you. Can you see that
super.
now?
Yeah, I've got it. Lovely. Okay, that's brilliant. I'll just request that's it. So yeah, just literally a couple of minutes, just sharing a bit of information about the services available to support your businesses through the Humber Growth Hub. A couple of programs we're involved in. Of course, these webinars are. I'll deny that, I think. These webinars are part of the service, and we try to run a variety of different topics. Some very practical in terms of how to get more out of things like Microsoft, or tips and techniques about adopting different technologies like moving to the cloud, or CRM and so on. So please do keep an eye open for those, and you know, we'll just see if I can actually move.
Do you want me to?
Would you mind?
Because it's asking me to go to my settings, so probably easier if I do it for you.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So please do keep an eye open for those. And we've actually going to incorporate alongside the webinars some Digital Skills Academy topics on things like marketing and moving to the cloud, cybersecurity, and so on. We've got about 6 initial topics which are going to run from May through to July. So it'll be three connected workshops of a couple of hours. So do keep your eye out for those, and would be great if you're able to join us. Then alongside that, we're also running a program called Digital Catalyst. I know some of you are already familiar with this, and again, great to see some familiar names today, some of whom have got engaged with this. For those of you that don't know, we're able to provide technology specialists on a one-to-one basis to assist you with in your business, and that can range from some of the more advanced topics that we've heard, such as what we've heard about today, but also more day-to-day technology adoption activities, such as some of the ones I mentioned, CRM and marketing and so on. I guess what I would say is our intention is there's no we don't come in with a preconceived idea of what you should be doing. It's a genuine assessment with you about where your business is going, what your aspirations are, what your current digital maturity levels are in different areas, and then helping you to build a roadmap for the future. But then highlighting some of those more urgent and immediate tasks, and providing support around identifying which technologies and how to adopt those effectively. The aim is, really is about sort of helping with the long-term success of your business. So it is about having impact, helping drive efficiency, develop sales from new sources, developing new products and services, attracting, retaining staff, keeping you safe, and so on. So it's very much about long-term, effective long-term impact. We can also broker and assist and find other support areas to assist, and potentially grants and funding. I think one of the big benefits is, the team of experts have been there and done it, so they can help you, whether that's developing the planning or even sort of rolling up their sleeves to actually help with some of the initial implementation. They can cut through a lot of the noise and get you to the right solution very quickly. And ultimately, our aim is, I think, is to help you to become better IT customers. So when you're, after the support, we'll take you through a process that you can then use yourselves, and hopefully moves you forward in terms of how able and ready you are to adopt different technologies. And yeah, as I say, this is about real and long-lasting impact. So it is about making more flexible. I think resilience has been a key area for all of us over the last year with everything that's gone on. But ultimately, hopefully, we're starting to come out of that. And some businesses, by dint of sector or current circumstances, have actually benefited from the position. And I think many don't like to say too much about it because so many have suffered. But ultimately, this period is about keeping your business going, and where you're able to find opportunities for growth and so on, then obviously it's key to do that. But it is about sort of now recovering that any lost sales, and of course driving growth, being more efficient, and so on. So all of those good things there. I think the next slide just has our contact details. I have to say, at the moment, we are fully subscribed on Digital Catalyst, but we are keeping a waiting. So expecting to be able to get started again in the next month or two. So please do make contact if you'd like assistance, and we're certainly very happy to hear from you and to add you to that waiting list. There's lots of other support available through the Humber Growth Hub and the Grow My SME initiative. You can see the web address there. Please do use that to see what is available in the way of things like grants and investment support, and funding, finding suitable funding, but also some of the consultancy support around helping with growth and scaling up. How to take advantage of different supply chain opportunities, and there's a whole team within the Humber Growth Hub of advisors that are there to assist. So please do take advantage of that. And of course, obviously, we're a little biased. Digital Catalyst is the one we're running, so we're very keen to hear from you on that. But there's lots else available as well. And of course, please do keep an eye open for the webinars, as I mentioned before. I've just final check of the chat. I don't think there's any further questions, but we did cover quite a bit as we went through. So really appreciate everybody's time today and for the questions that we did receive. Hope it's been very useful. Katie, brilliant. Really enjoyed it again. Always a pleasure to hear you present, and really informative and really useful. So thank you for
Thank you very much, Mark. Thank you, everyone. Good questions.
And I think that's probably us for today. So yeah, look forward to seeing you next time. There's a few requests around sending content through, which we will certainly follow up with. And as I say, just leave me again to say thank you once again for investing the time of today. Take care.
Take care, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Mark.